channel. It's been a little bit of a hot minute. If you know anything, make sure my mic is on. If you know anything about me, I'm a real estate agent here in the latter parts of Utah with Real Broker, and we're gonna be going over the housing update here in this video today. A lot of things to go over between interest rates, new laws laid out, what Utah's doing about the renting issues and housing prices, and what that means for you if you're looking to buy in 2026. So let's go ahead and jump into this one and get started. All right, let's jump into this one. Utah's housing issue happens to be Utah's #1 issue that they want to be addressed. They want it to be a concern, and we want to know what we can do things about this. There's a couple of issues. Interest rates have been high, renting properties have been hard to find, plus they've been more expensive, and inventory has been extremely low. A lot of these things are starting to shift and to change during Utah's housing market right now in the 2026. Looking at my screen right now, you can see it is the voters' top issue, and there are numbers of reasons of why this is an issue for Utah, okay? 16% of homes are affordable to the housing earning, which means the median income is only $100,000. I remember back in the day, $100,000 would get you very far, but nowadays, the average price to be able to afford an average home, which means a townhouse or a starter home for a single family home, you need to be making over $100,000 as a family living in Utah, looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath kind of a house. So this has been some issues moving forward because we need to address some things and to learn and to change and to grow. Why this really matters in Utah, the nation rate of 75% is reflecting the reality of the state where the housing affordability in Utah's voters' #1 priority in making some laws, making some changes, or figuring out what we can do to make the adjustment so it's more affordable. The big picture, obviously, mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are already starting to come down. A lot of different factors are coming at us here in Utah that are going to start flatlining, making Utah come back to what I'm going to call more of a stable market here in Utah, okay? Big picture, we want to make sure you can afford. You zoom in, you see the local zonings, apply for public. Now, we know that there's some national news, which you're going to get to as well, that is also going to affect Utah in this. So these are things that I think about when I'm looking forward to buying a home or not. I'm more of an analytical person, making sure the numbers talk to me. Because I get the question all the time, Jenny, when is the right time to buy for me and my family? And I say, okay, we can sit down, go over your personal situation and see if the numbers make sense. Because if the numbers make sense, then I would say that is the time to buy a home. And what I mean by numbers making sense is the purchase price of the home and your income aligning. Now, here's the deal. A lot of people say they want to buy that dream home. That is no longer the case anymore. I've been teaching people for years now that your first home, which you need to call your starter home, is going to get you into that next home. Now, if you're already in that current home and you're wanting to move to that next home, we can talk about the numbers and the equity you've already built in that home. Statistically, you are earning up to 2 to 5% equity every single year in that home. That could be upwards of $12,000, $20,000. In 2020, it was 21% increase of equity. So it kind of fluctuates every year, but you might be sitting on some cash in your home, and I can teach you what to do with it, whether you want to move with that money or whether you want to use that money towards investment properties. I was just talking to a friend about buying possible on Airbnb. There's things you can do with the equity in your home. The reason why I talk about the equity in your home is the equity is what's going to get you closer to retirement. That's everybody's goal, right? So looking between the lines, the housing rough hold has to earn at least $80,000 a year. I remember back in the day, the $80,000 a year was going to get you a good home. That's no longer the case anymore. $80,000 is really squeezing into a townhouse. So I always recommend you either look at a condo or you look at a townhouse because the median house price is only continually going up here in Utah. That's less than $113,000 needed to afford a medium house price of $435,000. So look at that. The medium house price is they're saying $435,000. I'm going to say it's a little bit higher than that. When was this article written? That's what I always like to look at. Okay, it's a pretty new article, January 22nd. These numbers are not always correct, which is why you want to talk to a realtor. Doing your own research is great. It's a good start, but then get me as a professional involved to know what really is going to make the numbers work for you. Looking at this right here, it says builders are leaning into townhouses. This is so true across the board, especially for Utah County. Salt Lake County is pretty maxed out. Guys, I go around all these different cities, I visit them, and then I talk about them, and I talk about the landmarks, I talk about the school, I talk about the parks. So if you're wanting to know what city you want to move into Utah, go check out those videos. I pretty much visit every single town between Utah County and Salt Lake County. We're getting close to finishing all of them, but go and educate yourself on what city is going to work for you as far as school, as far as transportation, as far as life and cost of living, if you need to commute to work, lots of things to consider, parks, all these things to look at, restaurants. There's so many different things that I go over in each of those videos, so go and check those out as well. But leading into townhouses is what I've seen in these up and coming cities. Now, because builders are giving quite good incentives right now, and I don't want to tell you specifically what they are, but I know that I've looked at this and like, okay, builders are making it more affordable, especially for first-time home buyers, to get into these townhouses. And so right now, builders are saying that's where the money's at because that's where the demand is at. Your first-time buyer cannot afford a single-family home on its own lot, but your first-time home buyer can afford a townhouse. Not to mention the housing inventory issue that we have had here in Utah. The housing inventory that we've had is that there are more buyers than there are houses available. Now, the buyers pulled back and they started to stand in line because the interest rates went up. Now that we're seeing interest rates come down below 5% and within the mid 5%, we've seen incentives of buyers saying, builders saying, look, use our lender and we'll give you an incredible incentive for an interest rate with our in-house lender. There's lots of incentives going on, but that's because I know the name of the game. I know what numbers to look for. I know what builders to work with. I know what cities you might be interested in as far as safety and crime and schools. So we can go over all of that in your situation. If you're someone who's looking to sell your house, like I said, this is a space to be in as well, to know what to do with that equity if you're ready to sell and move up as well. All right, number 2 that we're going over right now is mortgage interest rates. I want you to bring you back to my screen and look at this. Current mortgage interest rates, January 19th to 23rd. What is happening right now? According to the Money Daily survey, 30-year fixed rate average loan is down 6.3. That is 0.026 down. We are seeing an influx of money, of interest rates going down. Now, whether you stand, whatever side you stand on with politics or whatnot, Trump is very involved when it comes to real estate just because that is his name of the game when it came to his career. So he's very aware of what's going on in the real estate, and he's coming up with plans to how to make it better, making housing more affordable, making the dream of the American dream to own a home still there. One of those things is really pushing the feds to lower those interest rates. There's strategies he's been doing, survey that 30-year fixed average of 6%. That's really good. 6% is really good. Now that's an average credit score, debt to income. There's other numbers and factors that play into this one. We are seeing a volatile return up and down, especially during the holidays. We definitely saw it. We're coming back to more of a relaxation time, pre-tax season kind of thing where people are, holding back their money, waiting to see what they're going to be able to afford. I really love this kind of thing right here. Today's average mortgage rates, you're seeing that these are down. This one's up a little bit, the 7-1 ARM. These are all things that you might not be familiar with, but I definitely want to teach you and educate you if you are interested in it. Okay, these are refinancing ones. We're not seeing a lot of people refinance because their rates still are about the same as what we're seeing now. If these rates become down around 5.5, which sometimes you can get depending on the loan, we are going to start seeing more people refinance their homes, which means they're going to want to stay in their home. There's a lot of pending opportunities out there that we have been throwing ideas of trying to correct and solve this issue here, especially here in Utah. One of those corrections is, can we move the current loan with the home? Meaning like leave the home and take the loan. So you can take the loan with you to your next house and what that would look like. That means you're keeping your interest rate. That would make people want to move more. So if I could tell you that if you're at the current home that you're in and the current mortgage that you have right now, if you could take that interest rate with you to the next house, would you move? I would say absolutely, because what stops me from moving and a lot of people from moving is the interest rate. They got a good interest rate. It's below 5%. It might even be below 4%. Why would they ever want to get rid of that interest rate? We've had options on the market called assumable loans. They've been there for decades. Assumable loans have been hard though because you have to be able to come up with the cash difference versus the sell price and the mortgage rate and the loan value. So if the loan value sits at $450, but they've listed the house for $650, that means that they now have equity of around $200,000 in that property. You have to come up with that $200,000 cash in order to get that lower interest rate to assume the loan. That's been hard for a lot of people to do, which is why we're actually seeing a lot more seller financing on the market right now. I'm a part of a lot of social media groups on Facebook if this is something you're interested. What you do is you're basically getting into an agreement as a rent to own situation. Whatever the terms are, any terms are available. It's between the two parties to agree on what they want to do. But you can actually take over that loan after what is called a balloon payment. So let me give you an example. For a seller financing, you can come in and say, I'm gonna put down $10,000 towards the property. Then I'm gonna pay the current seller an interest rate, and most of the time it's higher than their interest rate on their mortgage because they do wanna make some cash flow on this property or else it's not gonna make sense to them. Then you're gonna have an interest rate and a monthly payment. So the interest is being paid to the seller, but you're still paying down that payment, but you do not have your name on the title. People are getting creative of knowing how to get people into homes without having to deal with the qualifications of these higher price points and these higher interest rates. It's making it really hard for people to afford a home, just as we discussed. I think it's really important to note that when you're looking at the mortgage rate trends, we're doing great as far as mortgage rate is. I am not that person who is going to tell you date the rate, marry the home. That was a trend there for a while when interest rates started fluctuating. I would absolutely never be the realtor to say that to you because I know how interest rates work. I don't want you to buy a home thinking that you're gonna get a better interest rate on it. Another thing that people are doing to try to make it more affordable into a home is they're buying down rates. There's multiple ways to buy down a rate. So when you're working with a lender and you're wanting to buy a home, builders are doing this, lenders are doing this, sellers are offering this. So we've seen this trend. If interest rates continue to lower, we're not going to see this trend as much anymore, which is why it still might be a good time for you to jump into the market. Because what I'll do is I'll take your numbers, because I'm an analytical person, the numbers tell the story. I know where your budget's at. I know what monthly payments you want to make. And so I'm going to take that number and I'm going to work with it. I'm going to work with the lender. When can I do a buy down on this rate? Go to the sellers. Sellers, I need more cash in what's called a close to cash or concessions in order to buy down this rate. So I'll do a lot of deals, and builders are doing this as well. They'll say, we'll offer you an incentive of a large amount of cash, $20,000, $10,000, whatever it might be, in order for you to buy down that rate. Now, buying down a rate is always going to be cheaper than lowering the purchase of the house. Logistically, it's going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars to lower that interest rate versus the purchase price of the house. Now, every story is different. Cash is still king, and I know that if you're wanting to come forward with more cash, that's a whole different story, which is why I'm telling you that your story is going to make a huge difference. You need to work with a realtor who understands these numbers, who understands how to negotiate, who's had the experience, who's messed up, who's made errors, and who has come up above and learned more of how to navigate around these things. I would be that realtor. I have confidently handled investment properties, land properties, building, working with builders, moving up, first-time home buyers. I kind of work with it all, and I'm up to date on what the trends are doing and how things are going, and my negotiation skills to be able to fight for what you need. Now, there's one thing I really do suck at as a realtor, and I'm just going to be honest with you, and that is opening the doors. Opening a super box for me sometimes is like, what is going on? I can't get this key in the door. But I do love showing properties and helping you out and figuring out what's going to work for you in your situation. If you are interested in talking to me, this story is just the layer on the top. There's so much more that I could help you out with. Let me know. I have my number down there. Just shoot me a text message if you want, or shoot me a phone call if you want, or you can email me, or you can actually set up a Calendly time to meet with me via email, especially if you're out of state and you want to move into Utah. Let's get things started for you so we can get you into your dream home, because that's my favorite part of my job. You've worked hard to get here, and I'm going to work hard to make sure it happens for you. So I guess we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you then.